everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today. In my lap sits a stack of 10 eyeshadow palettes. I got these from the Shop Hush website. This is also an app, and basically they're selling really cheap makeup. Cheap sometimes gets a negative connotation. Lower cost makeup, I will say, like kind of drugstore price range stuff. They sell a variety of different brands on there, but I think the thing that they're becoming best known for right now are a variety of knockoff type palettes. So they're taking really popular palettes from different high-end brands, they're recreating them, and several of these brands, I think, are doing it really well, particularly Bad Habit. I will be showing swatches of everything as I go, pictures of the different looks that I've done with all of these palettes along the way. Since I have 10 palettes to talk about and I think everything's gonna be so jam-packed in this video, I'm not gonna do a tutorial. However, I would love to hear in the comments section if there is a palette that I talk about that you'd love to see in a demo. I do have some plans for some more colorful palettes, actually, in a special video coming up, and also there's one of these palettes that I used recently in my Get Ready With Me videos, so if you'd like to see it in action, you can check that out. But I was trying to kind of organize my thoughts on these palettes last night, and I thought, let's do like a 1 to 10 rating system, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, and just give each palette sort of a rating. So if it's 1 to 5, which I do have 1 5 in my lineup, but nothing goes below 5. If it's 5, it's average, above 5 would be above average, and obviously 10 would be like perfect. And I got some 10s. I got some proud 10s to talk about. Like, I'm not just searching for something that's good here. If it was all, you know, not good stuff, I'd let you know too, but I've been very impressed. So let's start out here and talk about this one that I got from the brand called Beauty Creations. First off, how cute is this packaging? We're talking kind of the size and shape of a Too Faced chocolate bar type palette, and all this colorful candy type design, and then on the inside, this is what it looks like. Kind of warm neutrals, there are mattes, there are shimmers. I'm not really sure that this particular palette is trying to directly copy something else. If it is, I'm not sure what. Speaking of dupes in this video, I only have a couple of actual high-end palettes that certain ones here are duping. I thought, you know, if these turn out to be good, I don't need a ton of overlap in my collection. We'll just kind of judge these, you know, as they are. Are they a good palette, yes or no? But back to this one, I think there are some really good standout shades here. I really truly like the look that I turned out. There are a couple of shades that are a little bit pinky in the midst of all this kind of orangey brown, this color called Jolly here, and Candy down here at the bottom. Kind of a plummy shade with a little bit of pink in that as well. So I think there were some surprising positives with this palette, but it is $18. So we're not talking dirt cheap here, right? Some of the lighter shades, while some were fine, some were a little more faint than I would have expected or would have hoped to see here. So I would rate this one at a 6. I think it's just above average. And what I'm taking into consideration with my ratings would be pigmentation, the ease of application, what I thought of my finished looks, the consistency throughout the palette, just how consistent were all the different finishes, whether they were matte or shimmer, was everything consistently good? Also the packaging and the design, which I was impressed with a lot of the packaging of different things that I tried, and the price/value. So especially considering that this is a nearly $20 palette, it's got a lot of fairly common shades, so I'd give it a 6. Now here's a brand that you're gonna see a lot on the Shop Hush website. It's called Okalan, and I got one palette from this line. It's called the Metals palette. As you can see, it's got an Urban Decay Naked type shape, although I'm not sure that this palette, again, is exactly duping anything. What we have here is a full lineup of shimmers. So everything here, some of them look really metallic, you know, the golds and coppers and stuff. Just a full lineup of shimmery shades, and I actually found it to be very consistent. One shade to the next. They seem to all perform a lot alike. I didn't find them to be difficult to use or blend out. This is a $10 palette, and I think that's a pretty good buy, but at the same time, I also, you know how I feel about palettes that seem sort of unfinished, like they may not necessarily give you the full finished look that you're after. I mean, I did a look with this and this alone, but it's always nice to have that mix of matte and shimmer. So I give this one a 7. A lot of what that score is coming from, I think, is consistency. The pigmentation is really nice. Do you need this this palette, a lot of these shades do show up in other palettes where you do end up with sort of a matte shimmer mix. Next up, we do have my lowest ranked palette. I ranked this one at a 5. It's from Beauty Treats and it's the 24 Rose Gold palette. Really large palette here, kind of the cheapest looking packaging. Now Beauty Treats has put out some actually really good, surprisingly good palettes that I've found from like Five Below and I Kate House and stuff, but this palette that I tried, I thought it looked really promising. Just this whole color scheme seemed to be the type of thing that would appeal to me, but there are a few reasons why this definitely kept getting docked down. Some of the shimmers, like these two up here, this gold and the pink, it's like you put your brush into them and they're very, very like chunky. Meanwhile, there were some other shimmery shades that were quite smooth, so a lot of inconsistency where that's concerned. And then there were a couple of shades here that were highly shimmery, and when I first swatched them, I thought, wow, those look so brilliant. Look a little closer, and I'm 95% sure that there's kind of an overspray on these two colors here. See how different they look where they've been swatched and applied, and you kind of dig into the color a little bit, and you're losing some of that brilliance that was sitting on top there. And oversprays are a real pet peeve of mine because I think that's so deceiving. You look at the swatches and I think you'll see what I mean. Like some of these colors are just a little too faint, and looking at all of what you have to choose from this website, there are definitely some better choices that you can make. I mean, this palette's $12. That's not a super high price tag, but you will find better, as you'll see from what I continue to talk about here. So yeah, I ranked this one at a 5. Didn't hate the look I turned out with it. Could probably do several other really decent looks, but it's straight up average for me. Okay, now we're gonna move into a bunch of stuff from Bad Habit. So Bad Habit is a line from this website that I think is really just killing it. They're doing some great stuff. The packaging, I mean, I love the way their palettes are packaged. They don't seem cheap, you know? They seem like they've been somewhat thoughtfully designed. There's a nice weight to everything. For example, in this Midsummer Night palette, it's got a nice big mirror in there. This is sort of the dupe palette, you might say, of the Too Faced Natural Love. But what's kind of interesting is that they don't lay out all the shades in identical places, you know? So they've mixed it up somewhat, but I could still absolutely tell at a glance that that was the palette that this was sort of fashioned after. So we've got a huge mix of matte and shimmer, tons of neutrals, pinks, some soft lilacs, some really, really deep shades like olive greens, matte browns. They've even got the same color, you know, from the Too Faced one that seemed to be sort of a plum with a bluish shimmer. When I was looking palette to palette, I won't say I found an exact like duplicate for every single shade in there, but I did find a lot of closeness, even closeness in just the feel of some of the colors. And as you look at the swatches, I do think there's a lot of consistency. You can see some really bold shimmers, you can see some softer, more pearlescent shades, some really rich matte colors. I was a fan, you know, of the original Too Faced Natural Love palette, so obviously this is a color scheme that appeals to me. Bad Habit's gonna charge you $16 for this, and I gave it an 8. The reason being was because when I was really trying to scrutinize the way some of these went on, I do feel like Too Faced has somewhat of a superior matte texture. They apply and pick up onto your brush like super duper evenly. And I would classify all the mattes in here as very soft as well, but I think you have to be just a bit more careful with them because they can kick up a little more fallout. Some outstanding mattes that if you just have a little patience with them, if you just pick up and build up little by little, which is my general way of applying eyeshadow already, you're probably gonna really like them. But there is that tendency to kick up a little extra powderiness. And $16, you know, that they're not giving it away. So all things considered, I rank this at an 8. Next up from Bad Habit, we've got the Aphrodite palette. And this is the one that I believe is fashioned after the Huda Beauty Rose Gold palette. She's got a couple of larger palettes, right? The one that I've always talked about as being kind of the Sunset Eyes, that Desert Dusk. And then this is the one that I never actually bought from the Huda line. So I thought I'll get that from Bad Habit, and if I love it, then I won't even have to pursue the other one. And I must say, this is very impressive. So much intensity with these colors. It's a color scheme that I definitely am drawn to. I love the pinks, the reds, the blush tones in here as well. There are some shimmers that you just need to know, like you have to have some patience with. I ranked this palette at a 9, and the only reason why I would have docked it in any way is that there is some flakiness with some of these ultra metallic shades. And just a little word of advice as you're applying these, some shades, some really metallic shimmery shades from the Bad Habit palettes, I noticed when you're applying them, let's say to your lids with a flat brush, don't just try to like go pat pat all over, which you might have tended to do with a lot of things. I find they actually go on better when I press them, like immediately take the brush to your lid, press it in and give it just a teeny bit of a tug, just a little drag to the brush, and then you'll see things laying down more like what you see in the swatch. But there are really only a couple of shades, like these kind of top two right over here, that I feel that way about, like just a little bit hard to control, but the mattes are spectacular. Like, I just love the type of look that this palette turns out. Again, a mirror on the inside, a real sort of expensive feel to it. Like, if someone just handed this to me, I wouldn't have necessarily predicted that the cost was what? Only $12. If you like this color scheme, it's absolutely worth it. Next up, I got a $16 palette that is seeming to dupe a Natasha Denona style palette. This one's called Solstice, and I know she has the Lila palette, which I do have that particular one, and I reviewed that. I wasn't necessarily as impressed as I thought I'd be with that palette. Natasha Denona palettes are super expensive, so I really just expected a ton out of it, and while I thought the quality of a lot of the shades was really good, I thought the color scheme left a little bit to be desired. But this one, this is the warm palette that I do not have from Natasha Denona, and look at what's happening in here. I mean, this may be like the ultimate warm toned palette. You've got red, you've got burnt orange, you've got really bright yellow in a couple of finishes, a matte and a really like kind of yellowy, almost orangey gold too. The shimmers in here will knock your socks off. You look at them in the palette and yes, they seem, you know, like they would be good shades, but you see them in a swatch and it's like they absolutely glow. Here's what's causing me to give this palette a 9 instead of a 10. I feel like this would have even more versatility if instead of a couple of dark browns down here, they offered maybe one or two other deep, rich shades that could sort of change the direction of things with this palette, right? Because it's very red, very orange. You do get those two browns to help anchor the look, which are very dark and rich, and I appreciate that. But wouldn't it be cool to maybe even have one like burgundy in here, or maybe one purple, like a deep plummy purple? I don't know. I just feel like you're a little bit limited just because browns are the only dark tone you have to work with. But that's just my own opinion. Considering the quality and everything else, this is a $16 palette. I think it's worth every penny and more, and so I rank it at a 9. Now we're going to talk about these little gems, and these are also kind of duping the Huda Beauty smaller palettes that she's come out with, the Obsessions palettes. I own one of them. I have the Mauve Obsessions, and these are going to sell for $10 each, or you can get a bundle of these, all 4 of them, which I did for $30 total. And I think that's a steal. I think these are so fantastic. Some of my favorite things that I've tried. Let me just go through and talk about each one. We've got one called After Hours, and isn't the outer packaging gorgeous, by the way? Like, I feel like that looks absolutely brilliant. And then again, you open it up, you've got the mirror. They're a little bit bigger in size than a Huda one. The shades are spread out just a bit more, but your After Hours palette is the one that goes very rosy, reddish, mauve. This is the one that I used in my date night get ready with me, so if you want to see this going on, like, I thought it was a great look, actually. I would have maybe improved a little bit on a couple of these shimmery shades and the way they actually built up on the eyes. I'm being super picky here, but I think, you know, there could have been a bit more ease with a couple of those shades. And eye contact, in comparison to the richness of everything else in here, I thought that shade could have been a little stronger. That's why I'm ranking this palette at a 9, but overall, like, the color scheme, if you enjoy reds and pinky colored shades, I mean, this was like an ideal Valentine's Day look. It's an absolutely beautiful palette. I really love it. Then we have After Party. Might be my favorite palette out of everything that I'm talking about here. Like, I have not tried the Huda high-end version of this, but this is spectacular. Like, I love what's going on here with the metallics. They are just dynamite. And I also like how when you glance at this, you might think, oh, there's a cool palette. No, this Morning After shade, which is so close to kind of like swatching along with my skin tone that it might not even show up enough, but that is brilliant in the crease, kind of blending out the edge of a look, because it gives this little splash of warmth to it if you want to. Plus you've got Trouble here, which is this bronzy gold. Hairspray is a beautiful like champagne with a little pink in it. Tipsy's a great taupe. Blackout's great. And again, these dark shades, while you might treat them with a little bit of care, you know, these mattes you need to tap your brush in, don't pick up too much, tap off the excess, build up slowly. Treat these like you would treat, I would say, a Lorac eyeshadow, but they work wonderfully well. This palette is just so gorgeous. So absolutely, I'm giving this a 10 for sure. It's so impressive. It's such a great neutral palette, but it's warm and cool rolled into one. Next up, Aftershock. This one, you guys, like, it's what you see is what you get. It is 100% what you see is what you get. The way these swatch out, the way these apply on the eyes, they look just like that. I mean, this yellow, a yellow is a great test of, I think, a brand's pigmentation and ability to really deliver on the color they're hoping to give you, and that yellow is everything. Your mattes are basically everything right through here, and then these three are your shimmers. So you've got a purple, like a true blue, and then a turquoise up here. Those are your three shimmery shades. And they're both equally good, both finishes. Like the look that I did with this, I loved it so much. I worked in, you know, the warm oranges and pinks in my crease. I popped some purple in there, and it's undeniable. Whether you like color this bold or not, it's undeniable that this palette is a 10. Like, it's absolutely amazing. If you just want a little bit of color in your makeup arsenal, if you don't want to buy like some massive palette that gives you a freaking rainbow of shades, you get this little guy. And it's like, okay, if I want that shade or that shade, I can just plug it into another look. You don't have to use this as a freestanding palette, although I did, and I love the look. And then the last one we have is the After Dark palette. So again, with that beautiful theme, I love the continuity of that theme in the outer packaging. But After Dark is your warm palette, and I would say I prefer this, even just this size and this amount of shades and this particular grouping of shades over that Solstice palette that's duping the Natasha Denona. You're lower on shimmer here, but it doesn't really bother me because the one shimmer is absolutely brilliant, and it's the middle shade. It's a true gold, and everything around it is matte. I wish I would have tried this even before I tried that Naked Petite Heat, because this, you know, this might be a better way to go even than the Petite Heat. Actually, I'm pretty sure of it. It's $10, and I rate this at a true 10 in my lineup, because look at this look that I've got. Like, that brilliant gold on the lid. The mattes were so easy to blend. Going in, I thought maybe this won't have quite enough versatility, but yet, like, the difference between this orange up here and this kind of like rosy peach down here, that's pretty profound when you're creating a look, and that can take you in a couple of really different directions. I love that with your dark shades, it's not just a dark brown, but also this beautiful Merlot color here. For as small as it is, I think it's surprisingly versatile and so well executed. And keep in mind, again, that method with the metallic shade. Press your brush directly onto your lid, give it a little tug, and you will see all that beautiful color from the metallic shade transfer over. And then with mattes, you know, it's all about just kind of patting in the color, building up little by little. So did we have some good findings here or what? I think there were some fantastic finds. So just to review, let's go through from lowest ranking to highest ranking. That Beauty Treats 24 Rose Gold, that was at a 5 for me. The Beauty Creations Sugar Sweets palette, a 6. The Okalan Metals palette was a 7. Bad Habit Midsummer Night palette, I gave that an 8. I gave 9s to the Bad Habit Aphrodite, Solstice, and After Hours palette, and then the 10s for me were the After Party, Aftershock, and After Dark palettes. If you can get that whole bundle that for $30, those 4 palettes, I think you will be so set where eyeshadow is concerned. I think that's probably the best value that I can see on their website. But I would love to know from you guys, what have you tried? Have you tried anything that I haven't? Were you surprised in a good way or a not so good way from different things? Let me know in the comments section, and I will talk to you again very soon. Bye guys.